It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
One just has to pick up a magazine or turn on a television to see that as women, we are bombarded daily with media images of female physical perfection, setting up the most unrealistic and of expectations as to how we should look. No wonder female body confidence is falling while incidents of eating disorders are on the rise. What's most alarming is the way this affects young girls. A reduced sense of self-worth can create anxiety, stress, even depression, causing relationship issues while potentially impairing academic and job performance. In direct contrast, my podcast, Confidence in Bloom, is designed to reinforce the truth and reassure every woman who has ever felt inadequate, unworthy, or tossed aside because of how she looks, that no matter her age, shape, or background, you matter, you are enough now. I, Tina Spolatini, a woman of substance, insist women deserve to be happy, confident, successful, and totally in love with themselves, in their own bodies, just the way they are. Through an ongoing series of intriguing conversations with women from all walks of life who are all extraordinary in their own right, we will embark upon a journey of ultimate self-acceptance and empowerment. Together, we'll share the stories, laugh, learn, maybe even shed a few tears when it comes clear just how far many women have come to realize how wonderful life is when you stand in your own power, feeling fantastic in your own skin. Michelle Teague is my guest today. Michelle Teague is an experienced, award-winning international speaker, trainer, and coach. She mostly works with business owners and HR professionals who are struggling with team members not communicating with each other, aggravated with the conflict that prevents their teams from accomplishing goals, or losing sleep at night because people don't have the leadership skills they need to be successful. She also works one-on-one with people to help them set and achieve goals that will grow them from where they are towards the vision they have created for themselves. Welcome, Michelle. How are you?
I am doing fabulous, Tina. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast.
Oh, this is exciting. I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us. So tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I live outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and for the past 15 or so years, I have been working in the speaking, coaching, and training industries. I've got a background in senior living and healthcare, also in the technology field. I help a lot of people figure out what's going well in their organizations and in their life and where they could use some improvements. I help people develop leadership skills, develop their communication skills, and also get teams all on the same page, moving in the same direction.
Wow, that sounds difficult. I raised 3 kids and it wasn't easy, right?
No.
And
No,
we're
not.
all going to the same place. So I can imagine
Correct.
that's super difficult when you're, bringing in people that are not similar in any way. What brought you to this career?
Oh, I was a corporate trainer for many, many years. That's where the senior living and healthcare and technology background came in. And what I saw was the same thing happen over and over again, that really good people who wanted to be successful, wanted to help others, would get promoted into leadership roles. And there would be a whole lot of fanfare and a whole lot of celebration. And within 6 months, they would be gone. And it wasn't because they didn't want to do a good job, and it wasn't because they weren't trying. It was usually because they didn't have the training for the new skills they needed to be successful as a leader. And most organizations were not willing to train and provide those skills to their new leaders. And I got sick and tired of seeing it happen over and over again. So I left corporate America and started my own company to do just that.
That's great. And so you have all these corporate companies now coming to you where they're
Yes.
saying train these people.
And I
Wow.
also have individuals who seek me out because they hear, oh, she can help me. So yeah, it's interesting what's going on out there in the world, because a lot more companies are realizing they need to hold on to the good people that they do have. That it's getting harder and harder to attract good people and to keep good people, and as a result, they're willing to spend the time and they're willing to spend the resources on bringing in somebody to help provide that training, and that speaks well of the organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I didn't work corporate for long, but
Mhm.
I had the training I needed, right? And so I can't really complain, but I know many complain of that. Many women say, yeah, they throw me in a position and expect me to know it, right?
Exactly.
And so yeah, I know that is, I could see that being a problem, right?
Yes.
Especially because you're growing, like you're going higher on the ladder. So there's
Mhm.
that much more responsibility
Mhm.
that you have, right? So I could see that as being a problem. What, so is it mainly women that you talk with, or do you talk with men and women?
I work with both men and women. However, I would say the vast majority of the people that I work with are women. And which is good because they can relate to me, I can relate to them. The other thing is I understand a lot of the stress, a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the overwhelm that women are going through, especially when they've got a family at home that they're responsible for, and when they've got a lot going on in their lives. When you know, they've got to make sure that the cupcakes are done for the preschoolers bake sale, and they got to make sure that the 10-year-old is off to soccer practice, and they need to make sure the 13-year-old is getting to ballet rehearsal. I get it. There's a lot going on in their lives, along with the career path that they've chosen, and it can be a struggle sometimes to keep up with everything.
Oh my goodness, I was a stay-at-home mom and I struggled. I
Yeah.
can't imagine holding down a full-time job and then a like a management position on top of that, because you've got all that responsibility. I can imagine that. So where do you start with these people? I mean, because you're going to be dealing with like all levels of corporate, right? So where do you start? Do you start with like image? Do you start with confidence? Where do you start with that?
Confidence is key for all of this. And one of the key areas when it comes to leadership is communicating. And we want to make sure that people are able to communicate with certainty, to communicate with confidence, to know that the message they are sending out there is truly the message they want other people to receive, and that the people who are receiving that message are receiving it the way that is intended, that there's not a whole lot of static, or the message isn't getting garbled in translation, and that everyone is clear on what that message is.
So you really have to dig deep into where that message is coming from and where it has to go.
Correct. When it
Yeah.
comes to communicating with other people, most people don't recognize how important the tone is of your message, how much body language feeds into what you're communicating. And I realize on a podcast, you've got people speaking, and you can hear the different tones, and you can hear excitement, you can hear doubt, you can hear anger, and you can hear joy, and you're not really seeing what's going on in the background, but people can see through the sound. They can see through the telephone calls. They can see through the podcast. They picture in their mind what it is that you're doing and what your body language is doing, because that's a huge part of people's communication ability, is to be able to truly communicate a message. the words that we use are very small percentage of the actual message when you take a look at the communication process as a whole.
Yeah, I would imagine you can have three people say the exact same words, and a different message is sent out there for each one, right? I mean, we've all witnessed that to some degree. And that's why texting right now, like, texting on our phones is so difficult, because you can write the same sentence, but if your punctuation is all different, or you're using cap letters, then you're sending a different message, right? It's all about tone. So I get that. That totally makes sense. I like the exclamation mark, just so you know. Whenever I text, it's always exclamation marks. And my husband the other day was like, "Are you mad at me?" And I was like, should I be? And he's like, "Well, you're using all these exclamation marks." And I said, "Yeah, periods are boring, right? They're lame to me." And he was like, "Oh, okay." So I get that. Like, and our messaging is the same. I know that one of my coaches is trying to get me into speaking, and I'm not a big fan of it. I can do this, I can have conversation, but I know that standing or sitting in front of a group is different, because the way my body language, if I'm nervous, you're not going to get my message, at least not the way I want you to, right? And I imagine that's where the confidence comes in, to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so you obviously are going to coach your clients on that. Am I right? Like, okay, this is how you stand, or, make sure you don't do this. And so you must do a lot of practice runs with your clients.
You do. And it's interesting you bring that up. My husband and I both belong to Toastmasters. We actually both earned our Distinguished Toastmasters certification. And it's interesting that you talk about, how you are physically presenting yourself. Because if somebody is standing and talking and their arms are folded in front of them, people get the impression that they're trying to put more distance in between them, and they're not necessarily being open and warm when somebody has their arms closed. When their arms are crossed, they're being closed off to somebody. And as a result of that, people aren't necessarily paying attention to what it is that you have to say. And the reality is you could just be cold. You could be trying to get yourself warmed up because it's a cold room, and you don't want to send the wrong message to the people that you are speaking to. And as a result, what we need to be is very aware of how we are standing, even if we're sitting at a table and we're talking with other people there. How are we doing that? Are we leaned back in our chair with kind of our feet kind of up, and we look like we're very comfortable and not necessarily paying attention? Or are we leaning in and leaning towards the person who's speaking? And that's showing that we really are interested in what they have to say. Our body language sends so many different messages that we need to make sure that it is in alignment with the words that we're using and with the tone that we're using when we're communicating.
So is this something like, those t-shirts that say, if my mouth hasn't said it, my face will say it? That's kind of the same idea, right? Where, like we're sort of expressing our thoughts and our feelings through our body language and our facial expressions.
Yes, there's a reason why poker players will wear sunglasses, because they realize their eyes will give things away. The expressions on their faces will give things away. And because of that, they try to conceal a lot of what it is that they're thinking and what it is that they're feeling and doing. And so when it comes to communicating, if you're a leader, if you are, even if you're a mom who has several children and you're trying to communicate a point to them, you need to make sure the face matches up with the words, because the worst thing you can do when your 3-year-old does something that they shouldn't be doing is to and start laughing at them. And sometimes that's all you want to do, because it's just hysterical what they've done. But at the same time, you're just like, no, you can't do this. And the laughing and the smiling, that's all they're going to go for, is the
That's right.
laughing and yeah.
Yeah, and they know that, right? They know. I remember 3 years old, they're like, oh, that's the reaction I get. I'm going to try that again, right? And then it's not so funny to you the second time around. And they're like, but you were laughing before.
Yes.
I think every parent has been there for sure. That I love that. So when you say that you get your, like, the teams on the same page, what does that mean exactly? Because to me that sounds very difficult.
Yeah, sometimes it's like herding cats, where everybody is just kind of doing their own thing, and you're trying to get everybody moving in the same direction. There are a lot of teams out there, and this can be a work team, this can be a family team, this could be, a group of women trying to go out and have a good time, for dinner. It's getting everybody moving in the same direction. So part of it is, what is the goal that we have? What is it that we want to accomplish? And as a group, you've got a goal. That group of women are attempting to find a restaurant that they can go to and have dinner together. That family is trying to go out and have, a nice picnic on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. That work team is trying to, sell enough product over the next month so that they meet their monthly quota. Whatever the goal is, everybody should be working together and moving in that direction. And what happens from time to time is people don't. They'll decide, the 5-year-old will decide, I don't want to go on a picnic. I would much rather go to a friend's and go to on a sleepover and go to a movie. Or with the women, 3 of them want to go for Mexican, one of them wants to go for Italian, and somebody else wants to go for Chinese. With the work group, they decide, oh yeah, last month I went way over quota, so this month I'm just going to cut back a little bit, and I'm not going to do nearly as much work as I did before. Uh, when that happens, you don't have everybody moving in the same direction and trying to accomplish the same goal. And part of doing that is communicating with them how important it is to get everybody, and the reasoning behind all of that. Because usually there's an overall reason of why you want to do this. Why do you want to have this picnic? Well, it's a pretty day. I want to get the kids outside. I want them to have some fresh air and sunshine. They've been here, there, and everywhere all week. It'd be nice to have some family time together. Okay. So we need to let the 5-year-old know, hey, we're going to go on this picnic. Later on tonight, you can go to the movies with your friends. Okay, let them know this is what we're going to do together as a family. With the women, all right, none of us seem to be able to figure out where it is that we want to go for dinner. Why don't we pick an Indian restaurant instead, or we'll go to a buffet that has a little bit of everything in it. There we go. And then everybody kind of goes that way. With the work group, it's all right, it's not just this, what you did last month and what you're doing this month, it's the entire year as a whole. You have to take a look at the big picture. And if we don't meet our goal this month, we're going to have a much harder time next month, because then they're going to increase it. And we don't want to get into the hole. So explaining why you want everybody on the same page and moving in the same direction is going to be very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wonder then, and I'm not sure if you really answered this, but what causes that, like that friction or that conflict in, like, obviously it's relationship, right? We're all in relationship with each other. And so whether it's family or it's like a group of women or it's a business organization, what causes that conflict? I mean, obviously there's different things, but I mean, in your knowledge, what have you learned?
Usually the thing that causes conflict the most often is going to be either lack of communication or miscommunication, where somebody truly doesn't understand the point. And when that happens, that's when the conflict begins. The 3-year-old who you laughed at, even though you didn't want them to do what they did, and then they do it a second time, and now you're mad at them, and they're just like, well, hold on a second, you were just laughing at me. It's the miscommunication that caused that conflict. So whenever you have conflict going on, whenever you have people that aren't quite seeing eye to eye, more than likely it's because something's happening in that communication process. Either the message isn't coming across clearly, or they're not open to receiving that message, or you aren't quite communicating it the way that it needs to be communicated. There can be different reasons why, but usually that's what it comes down to, is there's something wrong with the communication process. And once you bring people together and you clear up that communication process, or you actually do communicate with them, that's when the conflict starts to erode. That's when the conflict starts to go away, because people have a better understanding of what you need and what they need, and you can meet those needs through the communication process.
For sure. Like I know myself with my kids, right? Like, you know, if I laughed yesterday and they do it again today, I'd be like, well, okay. So I laughed because it was cute, right? Yeah. But I also did say to you that, you know, this isn't proper or whatever. But what about with like a manager to, you know, I don't know what you would call the under, you know, like a supervisor to their, you know, customer service, you know, reps or whatever they're, you know, like when you're talking like a higher position to a lower position, how do you open up that communication if the, you know, the manager or the supervisor, whatever it is in the case, isn't willing to be more open, right? Like I've worked with women that have been like, either they get it my way or they can hit the road, right? And so I mean that's a conflict in itself, right? How do you deal with that?
So part of it is, especially when you're talking about my way or the highway, part of it is recognizing that there are multiple ways of doing things right. I've worked in very few industries where there's only one right way. Accounting is the first thing that comes to mind. When you put creativity and accounting together, you generally end up in jail. But other than that, there's a lot of different ways that you can do things that will give you the result that you're looking for. And when you're a leader, a lot of times you have to delegate out tasks that you're responsible for. And when you're delegating out a task, one of the things that you have to communicate is, this is what the end product is going to be. This is what the deliverable is going to be. And you can tell them, this is how I've done it in the past. You can show them how to do that. And then you can tell them, go, do it. And the reality is sometimes your way isn't necessarily the best way for that person. If they still get the results that you're looking for, if the end result, if the end product is exactly what you're looking for, then don't worry about how they did it. The reality is you've got much bigger things to focus your time on. And when that's the case, that's one of the things that I work with leaders on, is because they want to do it all. And the reality is, you can have it all, you just can't do it all. Other people have to help. You have to delegate to other people. You don't have the time to do it all yourself. And it doesn't matter how they get it done, as long as they get it done correctly and as long as it's done on time, that's what matters to you most. When it's not done on time or it's not done correctly, now I need to go back and figure out why. I need to work them through that process. However, if they've come up with a way of doing something that takes less time and they're still getting what it is that you want, good for them. They figured
Yeah,
something out that you weren't able to, and that's okay.
right.
It's
Because
okay
we
to
all,
recognize.
they're
Yeah,
right. And we all create our own system, right? And at the end, if the end product is the same, that's what's the most important. As long as
correct.
you're not hurting anyone in the meantime, right? Oh, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, I like that. And so how about, okay, so we're talking mainly like speaking, and then like as in corporate, it would be a lot of more like I'm talking to my team. So I might be like, coming out of my office or whatever. But how about like when we're doing like networking? And because I would imagine you deal with that as well, right? And so how do you help entrepreneurs network and be like who they need to be in order for them to get their message out?
So one of the first things that we look at is when you're networking, usually you've got that 30-second or that 60-second commercial that you've memorized and you've said over and over and over again. And one of the things that I look at is I say, all right, great. Tell me what your 30-second commercial is. Tell me what your 60-second commercial is. And I have them, and they can spit it right out. I say, okay, this is what I heard. And I'll tell them, from my point of view, this is what I think you do. Is that the case? Is that truly what you do? Because if it isn't, there are a whole bunch of people out there who think that you do something that you don't. And so working with people to clearly state what it is that they do and to give examples of that, or to talk about customers that they've helped in the past. And these are the results that they've gotten because of my help. That's what you want to do. And you want to practice that networking, like I said, commercial that you have. And once you've given it to somebody, ask them, so what is it you think I do? Because I just want to be clear that we both understand this, and I want to do the same for you. I want to make sure that I truly understand what you do too. And what I'm finding is when people do that, they start to realize, oh, either they're not understanding my point, or I need to say it in a very different way because what they're hearing isn't what I'm trying to say.
Right. And that, I think that message is often lost when
Mhm.
someone else does your writing, right? When someone else writes your elevator speech or whatever we call it, right? Then yeah, that's when it's like, okay, so I didn't write this, but I memorized it. But when you repeat it or you say it, you can tell that it's not coming from your heart, right? Or
Yeah.
from your soul. So that's where
And
that miscommunication comes from.
And AI is starting to creep into this because more and more people are turning to something like ChatGPT or Bard or some of the other AI writing programs and saying, give me a 30-second commercial, give me my elevator pitch. And it's writing something. And like you said, it's not writing it in their voice and it's not writing it from their heart. And as a result, what they're saying isn't necessarily communicating what they truly do.
Right. Right. Wow. I mean, yeah, like, wow. Right? Because I mean, AI is amazing. Let's
Oh, yeah.
face it. I mean, the stuff that you can do with it is just
Mhm.
amazing. But you have to remember, you can't just use what they've given you. You have to tweak it. You have to put your little itty bitty touch in there, because otherwise it's obvious, right? It's obvious that she didn't write that, right?
Mhm.
Or, like, what's he trying to tell me, right? That's something,
Exactly.
that Google would tell me, right?
Yeah.
because that's
Yes.
basically what we're doing. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Is there anything you could tell our listeners if they're looking, say they're looking for a new job, or they're, you know, they're in corporate and they're maybe starting their own business, you know, like what would you tell them? What would be the first thing you say to them that they need to understand about themselves?
Understand how you communicate with people, what your communication preferences are. There are people out there who are, you know, they just want to get to the point. They don't want to elaborate. They are people who are very decisive, and they want to get things done. And if you're one of them, you need to understand that a lot of people out there aren't like you. Uh, there are people out there who want to talk a little bit longer, and they want to get to know you more, and they want to have longer conversations. And when you're going through either the job hunting process, or if you are starting your own business, you're going to run across people who communicate very differently than you do, and their preferences are very different from yours. And you need to be aware of that, and you need to be willing to work on improving your own communication skills so that you can communicate better with people who don't necessarily communicate the same way you do.
I like that you said improve on your communication skills. I have said that I've had to do that for myself for years, right? But in all honesty, I know that I need improvement. I know that I don't use the words that I should, and all that stuff. How do I do that? How do I improve on my communicating if I've learned what I've had to learn in school, right? I mean, I know I don't speak like a lot of women I know. I don't know where to start. So please help me with that.
When it comes to your style is going to be your style, and there's nothing wrong with what you do. And that's the reality is when it comes to how people choose to communicate and what their preferences are, there's no right or wrong. The reality is it takes a lot of different communication styles to make up the world that we have, and we wouldn't be the same people that we are if we communicated differently. So part of it is it's not. I'm not telling people that they need to change their styles, because that's not true. The way that they prefer to communicate will always be that way. What I'm saying is you need to learn other people's style, because they're going to be very different from yours.
Okay.
And when you learn how to communicate the way that they prefer, it's going to cut down a lot of conflict, because you're gonna be communicating the same way that they want. But B, you're also going to get to the point a whole lot faster with them, and you're going to meet their needs a whole lot sooner. And the sooner you can meet people's needs, the sooner they're going to want to continue to work with you, to be your friend, to be a coworker with you, because you get them. And people like that. People like it when you understand them.
When you understand them.
Correctly. And so that's the whole thing is you need to understand your own communication preferences, and you need to figure out other people's communication preferences too. Because once you can do that and you can communicate with them in their style, they're going to love to work with you and hang out with you, because you get them.
Yeah. And they're going to know that. I love that. That's great. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, I think we all know that, right? Like our best friends get us and we get them. That's why they're our best friends, right? But when especially I think in a work environment, the way you have, sort of pointed out how we need to get along, that's what matters. That's what's important. And some of us don't. I mean, I didn't work for corporate for very long, I think 15 years. And that was like, 25 years ago. So that was a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's very different today than it was back then, right? I want to touch a little bit on like image, and what do you tell your clients about image, and how that relates to their message and their confidence.
Okay. So when it comes to image, image is how people perceive you. Image is what's coming across to other people. And when we're communicating, when you have that certainty, when you have that confidence, that comes across to other people, especially with how you're communicating. When you're standing up straight and your shoulders are back and your head is up and you're walking through a crowd and you're talking and people are paying attention to what you have to say, that's an image that you have that you're putting out there for the world to see. And it shows that you're very comfortable and you're very confident in what you have to say and in what you're doing. And the more confident you are and the more certain you are in what you're doing, the more people are going to see that. And that's an image that we all want. So how do we get there? Because that's the key to it, is we want people to see us as being confident and certain in our communication abilities. So how do we do it? And really the only way to do it is through practice. And people hate to hear that. It's just like when somebody loses a bunch of weight and everybody wants to know, how did you do it? And they say, I ate less and I exercised more. And it's just like, oh, what else do you got? Well, no, it's,
That's
it's,
so true.
yeah, it's the same with communicating. The only way you're going to get better at it is to practice. And you don't necessarily have to practice, just on uh, all new people. You can practice on your friends. You can practice on with your dog and your cat at home. You can practice on your family. You can practice in the mirror. The point is the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be. And when you're comfortable saying and speaking and communicating and putting out that image that you want, you're going to be very confident in what it is that you're saying and doing. And that confidence is going to create that image that you want other people to have of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that for sure. And how about like as far as like your look, like your
Yeah.
clothing, your hairstyle, like that? I mean, that has a lot to do with it. I mean, I've met lots of women, don't get me wrong, that are not so much into their look, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where their hair isn't really well looked after. They don't wear a ton of makeup. They don't care about their clothing either. And they come across as very confident and very knowledgeable in what they're talking about. But when you look at them, you think, there's a disconnect here, right? Like what you're saying and what you look like are totally different. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you approach that, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, you only get one time to make a good first impression. And the reality is every time you meet somebody new, every time you are speaking it to a group, every time you are at a meeting with a group of people, every time you're going to a sporting event for your kids, soccer or football or baseball team, every time you're going to that dance recital, people are looking at you. And whether you like it or not, they are judging you by how you look. And I know we've all heard you can't judge a book by its cover. People do it all the time. And the reality is we have to look the part for people to get past that first impression, because that's going to be what people keep in their mind. That's what people are going to hang on to, is how we look. And like I said before, communication is not just words. Communication is body language. And if you're not dressed appropriately, if all you ever do is have your hair up in a ponytail and you're wearing t-shirts and sweatpants and walking around in flip-flops and you're doing that all the time, people are going to start to think that you're not a professional, that you don't necessarily come to something very seriously, that you're very comfortable, and they're going to start to think that you're lazy, that you really don't care. And that's not necessarily true. It's just, you're comfortable. We went through COVID. Everybody decided to wear, t-shirts and sweatpants because they weren't leaving the house. COVID's been over for a while. It's time to get back to looking and dressing professional, because how you come across looking is how people are going to perceive you, especially until they truly do get to know you. So you need to make sure that the look you have matches up with the image you are putting out there for others.
I love that you said it that way. And the reason, okay, so the biggest reason why I asked you this is I was at a convention last week. It was a business convention, like a networking thing. And there were women there dressed in suits, very nicely dressed. But there was the odd one or two that came in sneakers with the yoga pants and the way too short tops that, they didn't, like, they basically looked like they rolled out of bed, got in the car and drove to this event. Now, I had a hard time myself getting dressed for it because I didn't feel it in the morning, right? I was like, oh, I wish I could just wear my yoga pants and, but I didn't. I dressed up. I didn't feel like I was dressed up, but I did feel, like I felt better than I would have in my yoga pants. Right. And there were women there getting upset because why are we wearing suits just because we own a business? Yeah. Right? Like, why are we doing what they did 20, 30 years ago when we live in a new world? And I was like, well, I don't think that's the message that we're giving by dressing up. We are giving the image or the impression, I hope, that we are serious about what we're doing and we will do what it takes to get our message out to you. Right? And I mean, I talked with one lady, she was so angry and I didn't know how to tell her. I'm a stylist and I didn't know how to make this woman understand that it's about the impression you're trying to make. Right? She was like, absolutely not. And I was like, I didn't know how to tell her. Right? Yeah. But I feel like you would have had the right way to explain that because you're looking at the whole picture.
Exactly. And the reality is it does matter. How we look, people judge us by. And the reality is if you had two women standing there, one was dressed in a suit and one had the yoga pants and the sneakers on, which one of them would you go to for professional advice? If they both told you that they were financial planners, which one of them would you trust with hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest for your retirement?
Unfortunately, the one in the suit is the one you're going to go to. Yeah. And it's and I have, in my experience, I have learned that there are people that have lots of money, that they know what they're doing with their money, but they don't want to show that. And so they don't dress that part. And it's unfortunate, but that's where I think we're lacking in that. Right? Not like as a society, right? Because I mean, let's face it, there are crooked people that you wouldn't look at them and you wouldn't expect that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix that. That's going to be your job.
Yeah. When it comes to, if you want to be taken seriously in your profession, you need to dress appropriately. Now, if you are a yoga professional where people pay tons of money to come to your yoga studio and do hot yoga or goat yoga or, puppy dog
whatever yoga there is.
Dressing with yoga pants and a comfortable shirt makes perfect sense. However, when you're at a business conference, you're going to dress for a business conference. And not necessarily how you would when you were at your workplace.
Yeah, I do agree. Well, this has been great. I think we've shared so much great knowledge, and I almost feel like this topic is missed, right? People don't seem to talk about this anymore. And so I'm really grateful that you sat with me and talked about this, and hopefully our listeners will gain some wisdom from you, because this, I mean, I haven't heard about this kind of stuff for over 40 years, right? When I started working in the bank, I was like, okay, I get it. I was 19. I mean, what did I know about wearing a suit, right? I was 19 years old, for Pete's sake. But that was my goal in life. I wanted to work in the downtown district, and I wanted to wear a suit every day to work. I did make it downtown, but we didn't have to wear suits. But I wore suits as a teller, right? I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to play this part, right? 20 years old, I didn't care. I'm like, I'm wearing a suit, right?
Good for you. Oh. And the reality is people paid attention to that.
I hope so.
And saw that you were taking this seriously. My dad always said, whenever you go to an interview, you don't dress for the job that you're interviewing for. You dress for at least one level up.
Yes, I was told the same thing. Absolutely.
That's it. When you always dress for where it is you want to go, you don't necessarily dress for where you are. So, and that's the image.
I love that. I love that. My son is a mechanic, and he was going for a job interview, and he was wearing jeans. And I looked at him, and he's like, "Hey, they don't have oil on them yet." I was like, "Okay, sure." Okay, but I don't know. I wouldn't know how to dress up for a mechanic's job, right? Like I just wear something clean with nothing like written on your shirt. That's the best advice I could give them, right?
Yes.
But yeah, oh, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tina. This has been fabulous. Thank you for inviting me on here.
Oh, this has been great. Absolutely great. So maybe give us one more piece of advice, just the final piece of advice, like maybe tag it all together for our listeners.
Okay. So when it comes to communicating, first and foremost, we want to make sure that our message is clear, because the clearer it is, the better chance we have of people actually receiving it the way that we want. But we also want to make sure that the body language, the tone, the words, they all align and match up so that the message that we're sending out is the one that we truly want people to receive.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will have all the show notes and everything all posted, and you and I will be in touch soon.
Sounds good, Tina. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Confidence in Bloom is a celebration of self-love, a confirmation that even though you may not look like a screen star or a supermodel, they don't even look like that. You are an amazing, desirable, brilliant, gorgeous, talented woman. We offer unconditional love to our partners, our children, our extended family, even our pets. It's high time we got out of our own way and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. In Full Bloom Success Styling offers an online course combined with one-to-one coaching in confidence building, personal branding, and creating your signature fashion look. Chic definitely comes in every shape. So if you want something to believe in, start with yourself. If you'd like to be a guest here on Confidence in Bloom, contact me through Instagram at infobloomstyling, or by email at tina@infobloomstyling.com, or through the Divas That Care website.